Women in Iran are now facing up to 10 years in prison for dressing inappropriately. These laws have been labelled a form of gender apartheid by United Nations experts and described as a despicable assault on the rights of women by Amnesty International. The introduction of these laws comes just days after the anniversary of the death of Mahsa Jina Amini, a 22-year-old Kurdish woman who was arrested for improperly wearing a hijab and died in custody. Her death is what sparked the massive protests in Iran that quickly spread around the world. In Iranian law, after puberty, women are forced to cover their hair with a hijab when in public, and to wear long and loose-fitting clothing to hide their figure. Right now, failure to follow those rules can result in a fine or a prison sentence of between 10 days and 2 months. Under these new laws, being inappropriately dressed in public will now be subject to a 4th-degree punishment, which basically can mean between a 5 and 10-year prison sentence.
That's something that's on par with the crime of murder in the Islamic Republic.
The bill also includes heavy punishments for promoting any organised acts of defiance of the dress code, or even something as simple as making fun of the hijab online. The regime in Iran has tried to justify all of this by saying that the most severe punishments will be for acts considered to be linked to hostile foreign forces. That may sound serious, but what this actually means is an important part of understanding how the regime is trying to frame all of this. The regime in Iran basically blames the entire movement on foreign forces and has repeatedly said that it's a plot orchestrated by Israel and the United States without providing any evidence.
Since the regime came to power in 1979, it's often used foreign powers as a scapegoat because it's tried to diminish the genuine sentiment of the people.
It does this despite the fact that the protests were started in Iran by Iranian women and are being led and driven outside of Iran by the Iranian diaspora.
It is so important for us to be here.
We will never give in, we will never give up, we will never back down, and we will never, ever surrender.
Over the past year, authorities have been systematically and often violently suppressing any protests and opposing voices, as well as targeting the families of protesters and ramping up public surveillance and policing.
These are deliberate tactics of the regime to scare people into submission.
According to UN experts, since the protests began, tens of thousands of protesters have been arrested and more than 520 people have been killed, including at least 71 children. All of this has pushed a lot of the resistance inside of Iran underground, something that's been covered in a recent report by the ABC. While large protests do still regularly occur, many have turned to other forms of defiance, like public graffiti, striking, or simply ignoring dress code laws in public, which may partly explain why the regime is now bringing in harsher punishments for this. If you're wondering how these harsher punishments passed through the parliament so easily, it's important to remember that the parliament in Iran isn't a true representation of the people. And that's because anyone that genuinely opposes the regime isn't allowed to run for office in the first place. And according to a recent independent survey of more than 150,000 people inside of Iran, more than 80% want to see the regime gone. Just a quick little disclaimer. Although the bill has passed through Parliament, it still needs the approval of the Guardian Council before it comes into effect. But considering the Guardian Council, which was set up to protect the regime and is made up of conservative religious clerics and law experts that are either directly or indirectly handpicked by the supreme leader, it's unlikely that these new laws are going to face much opposition. The bottom line here is that even though protesters inside of Iran have had to change the way they operate as the government continues to crack down on dissent, it doesn't mean that support for the cause is over. And Iranians around the world have continued to loudly protest, push for change, and advocate for those who feel as if they can't speak up.
For people inside Iran, there is no looking back, there is no turning back.
The regime can annihilate and murder individuals, but it can't annihilate or put an end to the sentiment. There's a fire inside the hearts and minds of Iranians that it can't extinguish. That flame is going to keep on burning.